The following program is intended for mature audiences.
Shalom and welcome to the synagogue. This is a podcast for consenting adults for information, education, and entertainment on BDSM, sexuality, and all things related. If you're not a legal, enthusiastically consenting adult, then
pick up the needle, press pause, or turn the radio off.
For those who remain, now might be a good time to switch to your headphones.
Welcome to the synagogue. I am your host, and they call me the rabbi.
Pretty fly for a rabbi.
I put the sin in synagogue, and I am a cisgender, ambimorous, gynosexual, sadistic, bratty daddy doll. Sex therapist by day, kink educator by night, and in both these roles I help people make their kink a religious experience. While I am a mental health professional, this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not a replacement for therapy. Seek out the assistance of a trained professional for help with your specific situation. Hosting with me today is my partner, my ADHD squirrel wrangler, my submissive, my brat, my pony, or just my little pony.
Aww.
The Fezzik to my Inigo, little bit.
The what?
You heard me. This is episode number 12, and with us today is Pup Spaz to talk to us about puppy play. Puppy play.
Oh. Hi.
Wait,
Spaz.
do I come in yet?
No, not yet.
Hi, Spaz. Welcome to the show.
Puppy pet play educator, Spaz Puppy, can answer a lot of questions about why it's so pawsome for our community. Also, as the head instigator of Indy PAH, Pets and Handlers, PAH, have been working with the local community to create gatherings and spaces that are complementary to pet play and adapting to the newer people entering the community and shifting from locally closing gay bars to alternative spaces and activities. As contest owner and producer and title holder, Spaz has prepared education on the history of our leather title contest and taken a closer look at why it's meaningful and still has a place in our community. But first, a word from our sponsor. Pup Spaz is from Indianapolis, Indiana, and has identified as a leather pup since 2009. Spaz can frequently be seen and heard around the community, shooting pool and chasing squirrels. However, Spaz now spends much of his free time traveling, educating, and encouraging other pets and pet groups. Pup Spaz founded and is the head instigator of Indy PAH since 2014, a regional pup group representing Indiana and the greater area, providing a social group with events for local pups to learn, play, and share experiences with their community. Spaz is also the owner/producer of the Indiana Pet, Pup, and Trainer Contest, head instigator of Indy Leather and Fetish Weekend, and closely relates to the Mr. Friendly mission to end HIV stigma and is a PrEP and STI testing advocate. Spaz was proud to be awarded and represent the first Tri-State Pup title in 2014/15, and continues to share his unique personality and enthusiasm with his leather and kink community. Welcome to the show, Pup Spaz. Let's talk about pup play.
Oh yeah, we could do that. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for having me.
Not a problem.
Welcome.
Glad to have you on.
Oh my gosh, so I love making fun of judges' bios because they're way too freaking long.
Uh-huh.
And now I feel like one of those people. There's so much we could talk about.
Hey, wait, I've been a judge for you.
You have. And so have you judged yet?
Yes, Lova has. Yes, I have.
Yes, because we ended up backup judging. That's what happened.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we've done silly contests, and you've helped with those.
Uh-huh.
Or not a contest event.
Uh-huh.
And yes, pet play. So you said I'm going to talk about that.
Yes. Pet play, pup specifically.
Well, I do tend to be a little bit biased since I am a puppy. But it is interesting because, of course, our pet community is always involved more than just puppies. having other animals join in. And a while back, we made that official because our paw group is now pets and handlers instead of pups and handlers. But to us idiot puppies starting out, that's all we thought about.
Yay for inclusivity.
Exactly. No, the pet thing the puppy thing is extremely a strong segment of our community, and it's really interesting because today it's shifting from our leather community and starting to, at least in my local area, spawn more from the furry community.
Oh.
Which is not where I came from. And then I have to be careful because I don't want to misconstrue what furry is, but it is also unique and somewhat Venn diagram overlapping form of play with some differences, of course.
Of course.
Sure.
And also tends to skew demographically younger than puppy even. Where over 50% of our pets or puppies are under 30 years old and identify as gay male. At least as of pre-COVID statistics, back when we had to wherewithal to do stuff like that. Yeah. What else you want to know?
So let's start out with what is puppy play.
So puppy play is basically setting aside your day-to-day concerns and taking on the mentality and characteristics of what we see stereotypically in our biological companions. It's a very youthful mentality. It's a very uninhibited, playful, curious, fun-loving way to go into a different type of headspace and explore the world. Could involve getting on all fours and barking. It could involve scritches and pets. It could involve being put in a cage. Really did initially, at least in the 2000s and 1990s, what have you, grow out a gay men's leather community primarily. So there's a lot of overlap with a lot of kinky stuff. There's a lot of sex positivity involved in it, but that's not true for everybody. But really, it's a form of release from your day-to-day concerns. It is almost, or very much is, a form of subspace in terms of, not worrying about the fact that the rent's due tomorrow and I don't have the money. And having an enjoyable and fun time.
So I know such things are rarely documented, but to the best of your knowledge, how did pup play come about?
Oh, we have several legends floating around out there that we've told, and you are correct in that the documentation is sorely lacking. I think the best thing that Leather Archives has is some of the very first puppy contests, which were very much Westminster-style dog shows. No talking, prance around the stage. It was kind of like a wet underwear contest, but with puppies. Who could be the cutest and play fetch the best and entertain the audience. But prior to that, it was said that some sirs were punishing their boys and treated them like dogs to punish them, and the boys liked it, is one story we've told. We have a World War II vet that stayed with a human companion and was in dog form until the day his owner died. But I don't have anything written to document this that I'm aware of. We supposedly have our first puppy in San Francisco, who swears he was the first one ever to do it. But we also have lots of animal role play going on over the years in different various cultures, such as spirit animals with the Native Americans, using animal role play as a form of physical therapy. Move your arms like an elephant's trunk, for example. Secret societies from the 1700s to the detriment of the Catholic Church that would bark at their neophytes or pledges that were entering the secret society. Really makes you wonder about some of our current secret societies and what they're doing behind closed doors. So examples abound, but you're right that the documentation doesn't exist so much, but what we do know from those around is that it really did start taking off maybe in the late 90s, but definitely in the 2000s, and just skyrocketed. It looks like a lot of fun. People see it and they're like, I would never think that I'd want to do this, but oh my gosh, look how much fun they're having, and I played fetch with one of them, and now I want to try it. It's a very safe entry point to much of our kinky activities in the gay male community, and you don't have to come in as a boy or a submissive to a master or sir. You come in as a puppy and explore. A lot less formalized responsibility at that safe entry point.
And while it's historically been a gay male community, it is not exclusively anymore, correct?
It is not, and it hasn't been for a while, but of course when it originated inside of those gay male-oriented spaces, that has been, and still, in the puppy world, still maintains a stronger gay male presence. With the shift in our acceptance and opening up to everything, and others to join in, which is not a bad transition. It's obviously expanded well outside of that as well. But that presence and that history is still there. Depending on regionally where you're at and where you find puppy play, we still do have enclaves of very gay male only, almost exclusive puppy groups, whether formal or informal. The gay campground comes to mind.
Sure.
Where puppies will congregate there, and that's what they know and that's what they see. And that's something that Indy PAH over the years actually relatively quickly got away from, was those exclusive gendered spaces. We actually started out initially for the first couple of years hosting pup events at our local gay campground in Indiana. And we stopped doing that because it wasn't necessary, and we had many other options available that did not exclude our non-male or male-identifying population.
Gotcha. So for our listeners who have never heard of pup play before, visually, what are they likely to see?
Oh. So probably the most prominent thing you'll end up seeing is a whole bunch of people walking around with puppy hoods on, generally neoprene. Mr. S, that gigantic leather vendor on the West Coast, first introduced that neoprene hood and was quickly copied all over the place. But actually they had leather hoods that they based upon leather gimp hoods, just stuck some puppy ears and a snout on it prior to that. But those neoprene hoods are very accessible, so looks like a puppy, barks like a puppy, might be standing there drinking and chatting all night or quietly in a corner. Or you might see them on all fours playing with each other, playing with toys, locking around balls, sometimes wrestling. Depending on the space and the mood, you might see more sexually graphic things going on. That hood ends up being quite a linchpin in a lot of the people's headspace. It gives them that sense of anonymity that allows them to act out they're more, I'm shy about doing this side. It can really help someone get into that headspace and explore a bit, and getting confidence in the community to explore further. Oftentimes our puppies are in a transitional space and will move beyond puppy at some point. It's not always a permanent kink or fetish or thing. Sometimes it's just getting your foot in the door. And a fun and safe way generally to do it. Again, not without getting into a very hardcore relationship with a dominant. That can be awful scary, especially when you're just entering.
Well, and I was going to say that also seems to be like, as if somebody is entering into the kink community, then, and doing it as using puppy as like a safety net, there's also, sheer numbers of so many puppies out there who are more than willing to step up and introduce and, give feedback or provide that additional type of safety net too.
Yep. Yeah, when puppies gather, I won't say mayhem ensues, but a lot of fun ensues.
I'll say it if you want. Mayhem ensues.
Well, it can. not mentioning Puppygate or anything crazy and unusual like that. But that's a problem across our entire kink community in general, is having newbies show up that are internet porn trained into an actual play space for the first time and not knowing how things actually function. So yeah, there's onboarding and a sense of community and having fun, and a puppy is a lot more approachable than a human in many cases, or maybe a leather sir and a meerkat, or a dominatrix, or you name it. Can be a lot more intimidating to approach, especially if they're putting on a persona.
I will say, years ago, my first leather bar that I went to, it was much easier to approach somebody, because I was coming in as a brand new submissive and growing up in the gay Leatherman's community, essentially, that it was much easier for me to approach a puppy and their handler versus somebody who is in full all-on leathers that night.
Yep.
They're also much more friendly, too.
I know. Puppies just want loving.
I know.
Put a smile on someone's face.
You can tell if they're friendly because the tail is wagging.
Very often, yes. And of course, that's one of the enigmas about puppy play, too, is that you technically don't need any gear to be in that headspace. But it is one heck of a hanky code for puppies to throw on a pup hood and a tail.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
There's no guessing what the colors mean. No, it's a puppy.
I mean, gear always helpful, but never a requirement for whatever the kink is.
Yeah, generally not. However, I would argue that those that find the puppy hoods, again, very important to getting into that headspace, getting into their comfort zone, that sense of anonymity to explore that side of themselves. That might be one of the more important pieces. But, you know, gear, all sorts of gear can play that role in different kinks and fetishes as well, or activities. And I don't know that I've ever really had that strong a bond with my puppy hood, but I also sweat to death when I have one on.
Fair.
And I like to talk.
Sure. I've kind of noticed that.
Like in the past. So Spaz can be in puppy's headspace with or without hood on.
Yes, I often label myself as a two-legged puppy because I tend to be on two legs. I do enjoy the occasional getting on all fours and getting in the headspace, but obviously when you're running a lot of events, when you're putting together a community gathering and trying to be a good host, oftentimes that gets set to the side for a bit.
Sure.
Doesn't come out as often.
So tell us about your collar, since we've been hearing it the entire time so far. I feel like we need to talk about it a little bit.
I told you I took a shower for this interview. I had to make sure I put my collar on. Mm-hmm. So obviously a puppy collar is one way a puppy can also flag that they're a puppy. It can be a comfort object, can be their owner's tags, can have stuff written on the back of it besides the puppy's name. But yeah, I do tend to wear my collar quite a bit. It's a red one. It flashes. It's also made in China, so the waterproof claim is absolute bullshit. The other two dead ones in the basement prove that. But fortunately, it recharges, and they're relatively affordable. And then, yes, it has some tags on it, which easily clip from collar to collar if I want to change things up or put on my pool safe collar. But yeah, it's one of the ways as a pet we will a flag that we're a pet, maybe without having our puppy hood or tail on. What else you want to know? How do I describe a red color? It's red.
So why does puppy play speak to you as opposed to other forms of pet play, whether it be kitten play or pony play or something else? Why would somebody go the puppy route as opposed to those?
Why would you do anything else? There's so many puppies. Not quite true. Based on what I've seen, and I know Little Pony Bites can give some insight on this. Mm-hmm. Obviously, puppy is most prevalent today. And again, that all depends on your local community as well, right?
Yeah.
Because kink is local, surprisingly so. People do what they see happening around them. But, I grew up with cats, which is hilarious. I suppose when I first went off to college, I actually associated as a tiger, a really horny one.
That's great.
I never went Tony Tiger route. But, that was before I even knew puppy play existed and saw other people doing it, and the cool hoods and wagging your tail and having fun. And, oh, by the way, when you get on all fours, you're at crotch level with a whole bunch of people that will give you head rubs and don't seem to mind when you stick your muzzle right in their crotch. In the spaces I was at the time, that was generally accepted. Our old leather bars. Why didn't pony play stick out to me? The different headspace of it, even when I became more aware of pony play. Pony tends to be a lot more about show and performance in a sense. Puppy play can involve that. You can have a trainer, you can learn tricks, you can be taught a routine and make that part of your puppy experience. But we tend not to see that as often. Not to mention puppy goes all over the place. Kittens being more aloft, more independent. We see a lot more kittens in the straight jerk community, although we do have gay male kittens as well, just like we have gay male ponies. And again, this is my bias in the community around most often. True pig play does exist, although I can't speak much to it besides having fun rolling around in mud and being treated like the stereotypical pig. I don't know. How sexual is pony?
It varies. I mean, it truly varies.
Yeah.
I know even with pony play contest stuff, I mean, you're not showing off how sexy is your pony on that. They're showing off can you do a routine and can you follow instruction? It follows more of that even, with contest type stuff. But, on the whole, it varies. Folks, I think people who want to get into some of the more sexual aspects of pony play, I wouldn't say it's taboo, but it's more of it's hidden and not talked about nearly as much.
Yep. Yeah, and I suppose that's true for a lot of people in expressing their sexuality, unless you're in a space that is more devoted to that, or space and time for that. And obviously our community gatherings and contests and whatnot tend not to have sex just happening around every corner.
Right.
But there's an undercurrent of it oftentimes.
Right, and oh, yeah, sorry.
No, I thought it was also interesting because I know the European mares and stallions, or whatever that's called, that happen at Claw.
Yes. That is a gay men only.
Oh, very much. And it's not pony play.
No, it is not.
But they adopted the verbiage of it.
Yes.
And people understood it. So that they can get into the headspace and just go in there and have wanton fucking, basically. With clear defined rules of who's doing what. Who's the mare and who's the stallion. Which I'm so envious of people that can do that. That's not compatible with my analytical mind. I like to know someone's name and favorite color before I mount them. At a minimum.
Fair.
Are there different types of pups?
Well, certainly. And yeah, we definitely have labels for anything. Well, hell. You've been around long enough, you've seen the number of labels just almost exponentially increasing. As people get more time to explore these different feelings they have personally and how they express themselves, and labels coming out of woodwork. Some typical puppy labels might be a service pup. running around helping out with events, getting drinks, being of service to those around them. We might have guard puppies, look after the security of people playing in pup mode, making sure they're not getting interrupted in a bad way. I know there's other ones I'm just completely forgetting. But yeah, we do have sub-labels within our community. And then we also have puppy breeds. But that's more of a what do I most associate with in terms of a specific breed of dog, biological dog. That was never something so important to me. My breed is mutt. Because
Fair.
I didn't even grow up around enough dogs or watch Westminster dog shows or care enough to find out. I'm too busy having fun. But some puppies will really take their breed to heart and express different characteristics they know of that breed while they're in that puppy headspace.
So, can you tell us a little bit about the handler side of pup play?
Oh, yeah, the human counterpart to a puppy. So, typically handlers fall under 4 different distinct hats. One person might wear all 4 or just one of them. You have your handlers, which look after the welfare of the puppy. Make sure they're watered, make sure knee pads are on correctly. Safety gear is important when you're on all 4 because rug burn is very real. Make sure they're not overexerting themselves. Give them loving, take them for walks. Our trainers actually teach tricks. Teach the puppy to heel maybe, or other various activities of that nature. An owner, maybe name the puppy. Maybe that's who the puppy goes home to every night. Might be their partner. And the other one, the term I would use would be sir, but this sir, mistress, someone within the more leather lifestyle that has a puppy as a part of their family. More very dominant in the lifestyle mentality and relationship with their pup. Maybe more mentorship even. So, yeah, and of course all those things meld and mean different things to different people, and many people will hold all 4 of those hats, and some will only hold 1 or 2. And a puppy may have different people they go to for different scenes or activities that fulfill different aspects of those roles. But of course, there's also not enough handlers, which is extremely frustrating for a new puppy coming out because they're like, I want an owner, I want a handler, I want that human counterpart to hold my leash. And instead what they find is they're surrounded with a whole bunch of other puppies looking for the same thing.
Sure.
So it's a fun play activity for both sides, because oftentimes that, and we don't tell the puppies this, but that is a very dominant and submissive relationship. That human counterpart, that human that's in charge of you, when you're in your puppy headspace. It's definitely getting your paw wet in terms of experiencing that dominant and submissive role. And arguably, a lot of our activities always seem to have a dominant and submissive role. Oftentimes a lot more hardcore than calling a puppy good boy and petting him on the head, or giving him belly rubs, or smacking him on the nose with newspaper for peeing where they shouldn't. Who knows?
So, because there's more puppies than handlers available, this typically means that you may find pups doing double duty of, they may be a handler to one pup, but they may be puppy to a different pup.
Oh. You are most certainly correct, and we have labels for that too, because of course we took up after our biological animal counterparts, and we have alphas and betas and omegas. We have packs of puppies. Alphas will lead the pack, the betas are the pack followers or members of the pack. Omegas will basically roll over for anyone. We'll have different letters thrown in there as well that you'll have to ask the person what it means to them.
Fair.
Because Yes, Kink is local. And yeah, puppy being oftentimes a transitionary period while someone's discovering the greater leather and kink community means that someone may be moving out of puppy a bit, or not always doing that, or playing mentor to someone new on the scene that wants an alpha or wants a handler, and having fun with it on both ends. They're being switched. Or if you stay in a puppy headspace, you're being an alpha to omegas and betas. And yes, our puppy relationship trees are extremely, grab 4 whiteboards and you might still need more. We start asking about, okay, so you've got 2 betas and you're also beta with this person and this one's your alpha, but you're alpha to these. And then they're alpha to other puppies. And oh my God. One of the most surprising things for me was sitting in on a poly class a couple years ago, excuse me, where it dawned on me that our pack relationships, or the pack relationships I was in, are very much poly families. Except we never called it that. That doesn't mean all packs are sexual or strong bonded relationships in nature. They don't have to be. They can be very informal or situational, or scene-based. It could be just good friends. But in my case, I was definitely experiencing the poly side of it. But, I would never call it that. It just means I got a lot more love to give.
Tell us about a mosh.
So the mosh is one of the most visible things that people will see in our community, and typically would be one of the first things introducing them to the concept of puppy play. And it is an entertaining to watch mess of adults in puppy costumes on the floor, playing with toys, running around, playing fetch, getting water out of bowls, sometimes wrestling and biting and growling and barking and you name it, having a good time playing. Letting that energy out, experiencing that headspace of having fun, of letting go of your day-to-day concerns, of the headspace is primarily what's being expressed through that activity. But it's when, more than 3 to 4 to 5 or 20 or 40 or 60 puppies all get on the ground together and play at the same time, oftentimes with safety gear, including what I would refer to as pet mats, but basic gym mats to keep your knees and paws protected, a bit from the hardness of whatever hard surface is underneath, and having a lot of fun. And again, that is primarily how people will see puppy play initially, versus the one-on-one encounters you might have outside of the mosh atmosphere.
Very cool. So what are some of the big criticisms of the pup community that you hear, and how do you respond to them?
Oh, there are never criticisms of anyone, because we would never tear anyone down in our community. Okay, yes, there is some animosity from some sectors of the leather community. That's not leather. That's not hardcore enough. That's not us. That's just people acting like animals. And while it's true that pet play technically does not require any overlap with the leather and kink communities, considering it's oftentimes adjacent to and right on top of and happening at the same events, those puppies are oftentimes the future generation of leather people. As they're exposed to it and see more and say, oh my gosh, someone over there's getting flogged. What is that? I want to try it. And again, a very safe entry point. Puppies are already using the same imagination we're using in leather during our kinky scenes. We're pretending we're tied up to the cross but can't get off. Oh, well, sometimes you do get off on it. We're pretending we're tied to the cross and can't get away. There we go.
There you go.
While being beaten and punished, but it feels so good until it doesn't. What if it doesn't? But oh no, you have a safe word. So yes, you're pretending. But using your imagination like that, being unafraid to explore new stuff. Stuff that, again, the typical letter person is doing. We do it as a form of release too. We get into this alter persona, in a sense, that we may not act out in public full time. But exploring ourselves and exploring our bodies and exploring why we feel different ways when different things happen, or like enjoying our dominance or submissiveness, finding that headspace. Are all things that the pets are doing that directly carry over to and also introduce them to the greater community of all the different things. Mm-hmm. The 50 bazillion shades of gray.
I mean, what I had specifically in mind when I was asking that question is anytime I see an article that is somewhere along the lines of, does kink belong with pride, it is almost always accompanied by a picture of a pup.
Wow. I actually fought with that on Fat Life over this past year from a lesbian in Britain.
Oh.
Saying we're giving gay people a bad name. So if you're specifically referring to pride, considering that pride was a culmination of many, many different uprisings and marches and pushback against the state trying to police our personal sex lives. Mm-hmm. It is our annual riot in March. To say that kink does not have a place there is to gentrify all of pride and corporate, rainbow wash the event.
Right.
When we're still fighting for our rights today. So bowing down to those, kids should not see that. Well, we're not having sex in public. And kids totally get it.
Right.
They see someone in a puppy hood. They know it's a human under there. Mm-hmm. But they're also like, Mommy, can I pet the puppy? It's a lot of fun.
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, it's not sexualized. I mean, it's not, it is sexualized in the appropriate spaces. When we're out at Pride, it's an expression of self.
Exactly. It's an expression of being different. And embracing that and dancing down the street, being joyous about it, saying, yeah, try to stop us. We're here in force. This is fine too. This is joyful. This is emboldening. And not a detriment to society.
I mean, when people say, you shouldn't let children see your hood, my thought always is, the hood is as sexual as your bed is, and you let them see your bed.
Yep. Or turn it on its head. Oh, I shouldn't wear my puppy hood in public because children might see it. What do you think I'm doing in my puppy hood? What do you do when you put on a puppy hood?
Right.
I'm not walking down the street playing with my bone and squirting over everyone. That depends on what type of bone it is.
I mean, this is true.
I got my pool bone. Its name is Squeaky. And he does fill up with water sometimes. And he does get shaken out and squirted.
That said, I'm going to find
That's an actual biological puppy toy.
That said, I'm going to find you something for, next time I see you. Hey, Jen, this is Spaz's bone that Spaz is allowed to, squirt all over everybody. With appropriate consent, of course.
Nah, it's just pool water. You were in the pool.
Right.
You already had it.
Exactly.
So you have run the Indy Pet Pup and Handler contest for a number of years now. Before we talk about the big changes you have in store for this year, tell us what exactly happens at a puppy contest And yeah.
All right. So actually, I've got 7 years of putting this contest on. So shortly after I run one tri-state puppy, within the next year, after building up the Indy PAH community over 3 to 5 years, I'm not sure. We had enough people and interest in actually having our own shindig, and it started out as just Indiana Puppy. It was the last contest ever held at our local gay bar, the 501 Eagle. And matter of fact, they announced their closure like 2 weeks before our event.
Oh, geez.
I know.
I'm like,
but I was aware that was on the horizon when I worked with the bar owners about it and saying, hey, all these people are coming in from out of town to judge, contestants. There's a lot of moving parts here. I want to make sure you will be open during the event. They kept to their word. So it happened to be the last contest, the biggest contest I've ever seen there. And they were host to a lot of our leather title contests back then. So it started out as Indiana Puppy. Gradually, a couple years later, we added Indiana Trainer. And then the population, again, moving away from just puppy play to pet play, we introduced side by side with the puppy title a pet title. And different contests did it differently. Some of them went straight from puppy and retired that title and just took on pet. And we elected to do it separately, so the pets that wanted to run and represent themselves did not have to compete with 14 puppies.
Sure.
Was the theory behind it. Of course, the theory and how it actually worked out, we are now actually transitioning away and semi-retiring our puppy title, unless we meet certain conditions, and then we'll pull it out and actually separate them. So now, today we'll only have pet and trainer. But yeah, we've had five title years of contests and winners. That lack of trainers and handlers within our community has meant that position has remained unfilled, except for our first year. And I hope someday that we can have that change. But it hasn't yet, and that's okay. Yeah, where's it going with this? Did I give a good history?
That's a good history. So what happens at these contests?
Oh, thank you. So at these contests, these titles are very much community representation titles. And what that means is we're trying to lift someone up during their title year or find someone that's worthy of bequeathing with the Indiana Puppy or Trainer or Pet title and saying, hey, we're proud to have you stand in front of us and say that you are a good representative of us as a population. And lift you up during your year and have fun with it. It can be a very much cornerstone to our community, And during the contest, that means that we are trying to quickly evaluate with a group of volunteer judges that are hopefully competent enough and have enough diversity to help pick out who is worthy of that title. We do interviews, we do speeches. Oh my gosh, we make sure that the person running for the titles are capable of interacting with people they don't know in the public. Mm-hmm. That kind of harkens back to bar nights, or social image, as we like calling it. Can you go out and be seen? Kind of important when we're asking you to be seen as our representative. Sure. We do pop questions on stage, so nothing the contestant can prepare for besides having the balls to be up there and be floored by something they had no clue was coming. Just to see how they respond on their verbal pause. And we also have a headspace scene where they can demonstrate their pet and puppy or trainer side. And how good they are at expressing that and sharing that with others. That doesn't mean they can't do that during the rest of the weekend as well, but you notice a lot of those other things were two-legged things where you're on two legs and you're expected to speak. We also went almost straight away, within the first 3 years maybe, to open interviews. And historically with our letter contests, such as ours, and ours is very much based upon our leather contests, as many pup contests are. The interviews had been closed and behind closed doors. And they tend to be the most impactful in terms of number of points that are required to win the title. And we stepped away from that and said, hey, some other contests are doing this. Seems like a good idea. Let's go ahead and let the public sit in and watch the interview. And it's worked out really well. And that way, our community representatives, our whole community could watch them compete. But honestly, we don't need the community there to have these events. We have judges. Now, we like the applause and the audience responding to what's going on, but it's not necessary to find a title holder. But these events serve a secondary purpose, which is bringing our community together for a period of time to celebrate, to reconnect, to meet up, to have a gathering. So that's a major component as well, and cheer on those that want to represent us for the next year.
Or longer if COVID happens again like that.
Yeah.
Like, you've had some awesome title holders. Some really good, title holders since you've started representing, Indy PAH. And some who have managed to be on... some who have ended up being title holders longer than what the initial requirement was, just because of the nature of life happens.
Yep.
And
I'm a big believer in our titles need to serve our population.
Mm-hmm.
I could dictate and hand out a title without a panel of judges, but what's that doing for our community? Not much. And yes, when you're referring to the big COVID thing, our pre-COVID contest happened 1 month before lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
So we had brand new title holders that suddenly were locked in their houses. And they became our perpetual title holders, I think holding it for three and a half years, maybe.
I believe so, somewhere around in there.
Yep. And they were good sports about it.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, oh, well, so much for your title plans. I guess we'll wait and see along with the rest of the world. And obviously COVID had a major impact on our communities and our ability to gather and be seen. Really had a big impact on our puppy population and our pet population and our Indy PAH. The average age in terms of being in the community of a puppy is about 1.9 years.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 years of COVID lockdown means we lost half of our puppy population that didn't know we existed.
Mm-hmm.
Because we weren't gathering. So gradually things are coming back together, but a lot of contests fell by the wayside. Our leather culture has a tradition of it's all volunteers running these local events, running these local contests, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. And, after 3 years of not doing it, now I don't think our community needs it, or I don't feel like doing it anymore. Re-educating your community about these contests that used to play a more major role and aren't as prominent today doesn't mean that can't change. I'm a big believer in it in terms of a great opportunity for our community and for our title holders and for anyone even just stepping on stage. It's one heck of a growth opportunity. But trying to bring some of that back. And, COVID's had a major impact in many aspects of our lives that we perhaps took for granted before.
Do you feel like calling a leather contest, whether it's yours or somebody else's, the kinky version of a beauty pageant, do you feel like that's fair, accurate?
I may be biased, but I would say that is a gross oversimplification and a very jaded perception of what a leather contest is to many people. And to be fair, some leather contests are that way.
Okay.
I would agree.
We have our players' titles. We have our equivalent of wet underwear contest. Hey, you showed up to this bar tonight. As a matter of fact, I watched Mr. 5-1 Eagle had this happen at least twice. You showed up at the bar tonight. You've got some leather on. Why don't you get up on stage and compete? And oh shit, you won. Good job. Oh, we expect you to go to IML next month. Surprise. We still have those events. It's not that they're not valid. It's that those producing it are doing it for different reasons and have different motives behind why they're putting it on. It brings people into their business. It brings people into the bar. And a lot of them wash their hands of it as soon as that contest is over. In terms of not supporting the title holder. It's just, hey, we do this once a year and crown someone. And then the support system may not be there to help out the title holder or let them do even more if they had the support of their producers and those that put on the event. But it can be confusing for someone outside of the community that's not as familiar with contests, especially as they've fallen by the wayside a bit, who may not be able to differentiate, hey, this is a really serious contest versus, oh, they showed up tonight just like I did. I could have been up there. And the meaning behind it, how impactful you should feel about it. And then, of course, we also have our players' titles, which by definition are, win the title, go out and have lots of mad, wild, kinky sex and be seen in your title vest, advertising for the title or the bar or what have you. So I suppose that could be a kinky drag or a queen Miss America contest. I don't know.
So this year's contest, September 13th through 15th, this year being 2024 for those who may listen to this way down the road. But you have big changes in store. Tell us about those changes.
So over our past 7 years of contest and not a contest weekend, because that's literally the name of what we called it, KNOT, a contest, our annual social gatherings, we've grown every freaking year, which is a great problem to have. It's great that we've had a good enough reputation that people are coming back and bringing their friends. It's given us an opportunity to bring in more education, bring in more vendors. And as of 2 years ago, we were already outgrowing our largest adult play space in Indy. And it's somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 square foot. And it wasn't big enough for us. So we've been pining to find a hotel. And that is a gigantic step. Going from a community-driven and run venue to a very corporate hotel that wants a lot more money. But we also brought on board our Indiana Leather Pride titles, which have a history here in Indiana. And there's about 7 different titles that may or may not get competed for September 13th weekend, which includes our Boot Blacks or Mr. I've made a whole website that has all this stuff.
I know. It looks great.
I can look at it. Indiana Leather Pride Sir, Indiana Leather Pride Boy, Miss Indiana Leather Pride. We have Indiana Leather Pride Boot Black, Indiana Leather Pride Person of Leather, a partner title, which also could be poly, so more than 2, Indiana Leather Pride Power Exchange, and again another partner title, Indiana Leather Pride Master and Slave. And so very much more along the leather spectrum of titles. And we're going to be doing that side by side with our Indiana Pet Pup and Trainer, or in this case, probably Pet and Trainer. So we've rented out a nice size conference center that we are actually both at the same time having trouble filling, and because we got too much room, and actually we didn't have any trouble filling it with, for example, education. We jumped from our not a contest weekends where there was no contest, having at most 16 classes, to we're having 34 different classes this year.
That's awesome.
We're having a formal dinner with a keynote speaker. We actually were able to snag the executive director of the Letter Archives and Museum to come down and spend a weekend with us.
Nice.
And I know I can talk a lot, but he's got a radio voice and can do an hour-long presentation on topic, and it makes sense and never refer to a single freaking note and have you enraptured with every single word. He makes me quite jealous. What else do we have going? Oh, of course, we have all the contests going on. Plenty of parties. We're actually doing it at a play space inside a hotel.
Nice.
That's been a major change. This hotel is local to us, and we're familiar with it. They've hosted other leather-style kinky events. So they're familiar with having a playroom and whatnot. But being a hotel conference center means everything's covered in carpet, so we can't do it sex positive, but that's why you get a room there. Mm-hmm. that undercurrent of sex positivity will definitely be there, even if not on display in public. You're going to set up a cigar tent out back, and matter of fact, even do a cigar class, again, led by the executive director of Letter Archives and Museum. We have our 10 title contest, and oh my gosh, we have 8 vendors this year, and 2 museums.
Ooh. And
the Science of BDSM. I forgot about that. One of the coolest ever groups that actually doing studies on our mentality, our headspace, on the physiological changes that happen during kink. We'll be on site actually giving 2 presentations and doing surveys and whatnot, in ways that protect your community, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
But just a really awesome group of people, and I love sitting in our class where they talk about the research they've done and the findings they're getting out of it. For example, how much more mentally stable those of us in kink tend to be than the general population. May seem kind of counterintuitive when we're shunned for being different.
Sure.
Just really excited to have them there. And I believe we're having the Carter Johnson
Library. Mm-hmm.
And then the Letter Archives and Museum is also doing a pop-up presentation at the event. And then, of course, something near and dear to my heart, both Friday and Saturday during the day, we'll have free on-site STI testing and education.
Yay!
Because that is incredibly important to our community's overall health. And one of my big passions has always been advocating against the stigma behind STIs. And trying to take care of us all, because, I'm sorry, having sex is fun. We shouldn't have to worry about it.
This is true.
If you get tested and know your status and take care of it, we would all be better off for it.
Definitely true.
And the website for people who are wanting to learn more about Indiana Leather and Kink Weekend is ilkw.org.
It is. That stands for Indiana Leather and Kink Weekend.
Yay!
But you don't have to type it all out. So yes, we have all the details on there, including how to book Indiana priced hotel rooms, as in it's Indiana affordable. Unlike certain other events in Cleveland or Chicago or New York or D.C.
You know.
So yeah, we're expecting a great turnout for that, and I expect, assuming things go well, in a few years we'll be even bigger, and it might turn into an entire hotel complete takeover, which we would absolutely love to be able to do.
That would be fun.
Yes.
So before we transition into the part of the show we like to call Inside the Kinkster Studio, anything else you would like to add about puppy play or the Leather and Kink Weekend?
No, I hope to see you there. And there will be a lot of pets there too.
Yay!
Which is awesome, because alongside the education, that this is, again, it's a gigantic... It's so important to our community to have these larger events that are accessible, where we can all get under the same roof. Oftentimes stay overnight so you're not worried about drinking and driving or doing something stupid, where you can make a mini vacation out of it. And one of the things I always remember is the late night conversations that invariably happen. Just sitting around getting to know someone new. How much I'll be able to do that weekend, I'm not sure, but this puppy runs around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Very fair. So, part of the show where we get to know you a little bit better as a person, as a kinkster. We like to call it Inside the Kinkster Studio. So, you game?
Oh, I love games.
Sweet.
Okay.
All right. So, how did you get into puppy play?
Oh, so I started out in the leather community as a boy, or thought I was a boy. I guess I still am, mentally anyway. I didn't really know puppy play existed. There weren't a lot of role models in Indianapolis. We had one puppy down in Bloomington I saw, and he kind of became my inspiration, not to mention going to IML, where puppies were becoming a larger and larger presence. And IML's a big gay men's leather event and contest up in Chicago every May.
Mm-hmm.
As I got exposed to that, I'm like, you know what, that fits me better. And then I became the local pup. Matter of fact, I didn't even have a puppy name. And that worked out fine for a year or two. Going to my local gay men's campground and wearing my puppy hood and having fun and barking at everyone and saying hi and having lots of fun. And then more puppies started showing up. Or I was at bigger events where there were a lot of puppies already there, and found out to my detriment that when someone yells across the room full of puppies, "Hey, pup!" and 40 puppies turn their heads, it behooves you to have a proper puppy name. Now, puppies can get their names in multiple ways. It can be given to them. Typically, I mean, a puppy name to a puppy is kind of like a FetLife name is to a straighter person or someone that's on that site. Becomes their kinky identity in many ways. And when they go by that name, they're in the puppy headspace. Some people like being given it to them by their owner or handler or master or what have you. There's nothing wrong with coming up with your own name. Technically, there's nothing wrong with changing your name. So anyway, I got gifted it by the community after dropping hints and actually being told I should be called Spaz. Which is not how I got into puppy play, but, you know, I'll just keep going if you want.
Sure.
So, yes, I was getting around quite a bit in terms of traveling around the general region and going to other events, and definitely got a name for myself, and people knew me by my bark. Mm-hmm. Which is very distinct and not appropriate for microphone. And some people to this day still at the gay campground know me as Pup, which is also awkward there now because puppies are out of the woodwork and filling up that campground as well. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of interesting where that name came from and how it was actually gifted to me by two people on the same night, two different people. So very much, in a sense, I was named by my community. I might have dropped hints.
Fair.
But it was definitely a gift to me, and been that way ever since. And now I've written it on everything, or peed on things, or yep. That is me. That's my alter sona. That is oftentimes my default being.
What's your favorite toy in your toy bag?
My bone.
That's fair.
Wow.
I figured
That was
one.
a little too easy.
Yeah, I know.
I know that was. I'm not as drawn to specific toys, but I always have my leather bone in my back pocket when I'm out and about and representing as Puppy. So any of our kinky events or gatherings, what have you. And that is my security blanket. That's my sucker. Has a little, I don't know. What's that thing called? Pacifier. There you go.
Pacifier.
It's a pacifier for a puppy. And when I put that bone in my mouth, I don't get yelled at when I chew on it.
Fair. Fair.
What are some of your catchphrases?
Oh, well, there's... I know there's a couple there. Spaz checked. So there's one of them. Oftentimes they're puppy noises. Can get you in trouble sometimes when you're in the more vanilla or white collar world in a stand-up meeting. Going arr. Or barking at someone.
I need you at one of my staff meetings to, like, get everybody to pay attention. Your bark would just do it.
Oh, darn right. I think that my bark stems from it. It's definitely a deep guttural bark that would be similar to me using a drill sergeant voice, which I also have, but rarely ever use. What other catchphrases? I mean, besides referring to fur and paws and having fun with the puppy mentality.
Anything.
I'm sure there's a few others that I'm not thinking of, but you might have heard it already.
Maybe. I know we'll catch them if, people come out to the weekend and are around you.
Oh, yeah. And I do get around. Just a tad bit.
Just a wee bit.
Or try to.
What's something people would be surprised to know about you? Just in general.
Ha! Well, this is an interesting one. So, pre-puberty, I've always been into diapers, as a diaper lover. Mm-hmm. And that has transitioned into me early on in my 20s, or as soon as I got out of the Brent's house, and on my own, became a 24/7 thing for me. So I'm always a padded puppy, and it's an interesting segue into the fact that littles and puppies tend to have a greatly overlapping headspace, especially when it comes to parental or caregivers, or having a handler or owner or human counterparts. So there's a lot of padded puppies out there. Also means I got to pee on everything, and they don't yell at me when I pee on their legs.
I mean, that's fair. Unless you're unless they're into water sports, and then they might be disappointed that you're padded, not peeing actually on their leg.
But what amazed me is the amount of time I spent at a contest event and end up, I'm running these events and people know me, or I think they know me, or at least they've seen me on stage, and I feel comfortable talking to everyone because, oh my God, I had a beer finally. Mm-hmm. And I'll just start talking about it, and they're like, "What? You're wearing a diaper? What's that all about?" I'm like, "How did you not know?" Mm-hmm. So that's something strange that sometimes people don't know about me that I think is obvious as hell because it's just part of my everyday life. But it is true. I don't tend to run around just a diaper. So usually it's covered. Although sometimes it's sticking out. I'm not too shy about it in our kinky spaces.
Okay, so a question that I know little bit asked your contestants as a judge, and I might have too. Now it's time to turn it on you. If you had to have sex with one Muppet, which Muppet would it be and why?
Does this include all of Sesame Street?
If you'd like, yes.
Yes, they're technically Muppets.
And Fraggle Rock and the Dark Crystal and...
Yeah, because those are all Jim Henson productions.
Either the Cookie Monster, because he can take a load, or Kermit the Frog, if only because the sounds of him getting fucked would be freaking amazing and put a smile on my face.
I'm just picturing him shouting "yay" and doing the arm wiggle thing.
Mm-hmm. But my only real concern is they've got to be really fucking loose because they're constantly getting fisted.
I mean, this is true.
So I think it would be more of a novelty fuck.
I mean, if Kermit the Frog was to go down on you, would that be a blowjob or a hand job?
I don't know. And who's got a frog in the throat then? Could you 69, Kermit?
I'm not that short, so I couldn't.
I don't know.
At least he could jump up there. Well, that'd be really hot too. Because I think it'd be fun to have someone small enough that I could hold him in a bear hug in my arms while breeding him. I just have never quite attempted that yet.
I'm sorry, I just got that visual.
Yes, it takes a very special person to be able to fit in my arms and for me to hold him that long.
So I was like, just got that visual. All right.
Oh, I've seen it in porn. It must happen.
Just add a Muppet.
Well, that was not a Muppet fantasy, but Muppets
no,
it would be
that's-
easier with.
Recognize, but just yeah. What's your favorite swear word?
Oh fuck, I don't know.
Really?
All right, final question. You can invite any two people, living or dead, to dinner at your house. What are you cooking for dinner?
Either go to American steak dinner or a leg of lamb.
Ooh.
Which isn't so prevalent in the U.S. It's all the fixings.
I'd make Hot Pockets.
Wow.
Sorry.
Gandhi's coming to dinner and we're having Hot Pockets.
I'm sure.
I'm going to Spaz.
No. One of the most joyful things I do with my beta puppies on occasion, when we have a chance, is I'll actually, living alone or with one other person, it's oftentimes hard to fix 7-course meals, or maybe not courses, but your typical Thanksgiving spread, or, a main meat and 7 side dishes.
Mm-hmm.
So inviting people over for dinner, or my betas, and cooking a nice steak dinner and having all the sides to go with it, and then we all get served in puppy bowls at the table, and it's a lot of fun. And food among friends is always a great way to share bonding experiences,
This is true.
especially when one of them gets under the table and pulls your pants down.
That's called dessert.
Well, sometimes that can be an appetizer.
Yeah, I was going to say, or it could be an amuse-bouche, whichever.
After listening to the show, if somebody wants to get in contact with you or follow you on social media, how do they do that?
All right, let's see here. I'm on FetLife as Pup Spaz, no space, 1Z. Facebook as John Sampson or Pup Spaz, but you have to be a friend of a friend on Facebook because it's locked down a little bit. Telegram is at Spaz Pup because someone stole my name
Oh,
before I got
rude.
there. I know, jerks. And you can always reach out through the ILKW website, Indiana Leather and Kink Weekend.org. ILKW. There we go. Yeah, that's probably about it.
okay.
Hey.
Well, thank you very much for being on the show and telling us about pup play and the weekend coming up. For our listeners, upcoming synagogue, in-person and virtual classes, including at Indiana Leather and Kink Weekend, is chain fisting, and our newest class being taught by a little bit called Hoof Hearted. Falling in Love with Pony Play, hands-on, a 201 class on Pony Play. Information on all of that and more on our website. Check it out. But with that wraps up our show. Say goodnight, little bit.
Good night, little bit.
Mazel tov!
Follow us on Facebook, FetLife, Twitter, Tumblr, and YouTube as Synagogue BDSM and on Instagram and TikTok as Synagogue Kink. If you enjoyed or learned something from this podcast, consider making a donation via PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, Patreon, or Ko-fi. Username Synagogue, or find those links to all of those on our website, synagoguebdsm.com. Remember, that's synagogue with an I. Also on the website, links to past episodes, upcoming classes, book us as educators, shop our store, and more.
Synagogue hosts and guests are subject matter experts but are not the expert. We believe that, outside of violating consent, there is no wrong way to do kink, except to think your way is the only way. This show is presented from a RAC, risk-aware consensual kink point of view, and not SSC, safe, sane, consensual, because every individual's definition of safe is different based on their own risk profile. The use of the word safe on this show fits our definition of safe, and that does not have to be your definition. Opinions expressed by guests on the show are those of the person expressing the opinion, not of the show.
This is not kosher!
Just a reminder, we try to make our content as inclusive as possible, regardless of gender, orientation, role in the lifestyle, etc. But we do inherently speak from our own point of view. For the most part, substitute our identity with your own to make it work. We want to know when we make a mistake, so we can learn and grow from those mistakes. So if you feel like we did say something that is genuinely offensive, we encourage you to let us know. Reach out to us with your questions, comments, or concerns via our website or call us at 469-269-0403.
Brought to you today by the letters and the number.
San Diego High School football room!